Hey everybody, welcome to Cycle News. The launches are coming pretty thick and fast these days, and as you guessed it, we are back in Spain once again. Today I just jumped off this thing. This is the brand new Triumph Daytona 660. Now for those of you with a bit of a sporting bone in your body that remember the 675 Triumph Daytona that came out 2005, 2006, that's in my view one of the greatest supersport bikes ever made. This bike is absolutely not a replacement to the 765 or now, well yeah, 765, previously 675. Got to get all my names and numbers right on that sort of stuff. But this is its own thing. The market is changing a lot these days, and the bikes are now, I wouldn't say they're getting, it's not fair to say that they're getting slower, they're just changing a lot. Now, these bikes are becoming much more road-focused bikes that are kind of like blank canvases, if you like. $9,195 MSRP in the United States. It's going to be available at your Triumph dealer about mid-April, I think, maybe towards the end of April in 2024. It takes a lot of the inspiration from the Trident 660 that came out a year or two ago, the naked bike. Using the Trident engine as its base, it is not the same engine, I've got to tell you. Everything is changed internally. So new crank, new cylinders, new pistons, new heads, new exhaust. What else you get? New valves, longer duration cams on the exhaust, new larger exhaust valves, new airbox, different gearbox as well. So you've got a slightly longer first and second gear, and third to sixth gear is a little bit shorter. 94 horsepower and 51 pounds-feet of torque that you're getting out of this thing. Now the engine performance on this is fantastic. If you've ever ridden, as I say, one of those 675, 765 Triumphs, those mid-level three-cylinder motors, they're just magnificent. They're so much fun to ride. They've got so much torque. Now this thing is a bit more approachable in its power delivery. Really, really low RPM now, 1,000 to kind of 3,000 or so RPM. It's a bit of a pussycat. You get 3 ride modes. You get rain, sport, or rain, street, and sport mode. It gives you varying levels of throttle response. But the more you rev this thing, the harder it goes. And you know, in the first half of the day today, I really didn't explore the upper ends of the rev range, and it's just a nice, easy sort of cruisy street bike. Very fun to ride, very approachable, but when you start to wick it up, that's when it starts to actually show its teeth. Once you get past sort of 5, 6, 7,000 RPM, it goes really, really well. And because you get the best of both worlds with that 3-cylinder, you get a nice amount of low-down torque and top-end power. You can be quite lazy in that gearbox, to be honest. You can stick it in 3rd and 4th gear, surf that torque curve, and just listen to the sound of that glorious 3-cylinder motor out of this little stumpy little exhaust here, which has also changed from the Trident. So bikes like the Aprilia RS660, these are the bikes that sort of pioneered, or re-pioneered, I should say, this style of handlebar. Now, I'm going to hop on this thing and show you the difference. You're compared to your traditional clip-on handlebar bike where your handlebars are going to be down here. This is a nice sort of pretty, not too extreme riding style. It's pretty much right in between the RS660 and the R7 in terms of sort of how much weight you have on your wrists. You are angled a little bit further forward than center, so it takes all that weight off the bottom of your spine, which I'm a huge fan of because I've got a terrible back. But yeah, 31.89 inches is the seat height. So that's pretty approachable for most riders out there. I think if you're any taller than I am, I'm 6'1", it's probably going to be a little bit too cramped. I mean, I must say, after a long day today, we did, I don't know, probably about 6 or 7 hours in the saddle. I was starting to get pretty sore, but that's pretty par for the course. Now, as I was saying before, these are pretty blank canvas bikes. They're designed to be able to put your own performance mods and that kind of stuff into it. And to that end, I've got to say, the suspension's pretty bargain basement. 41mm unadjustable, completely unadjustable fork, and you get a shock on the rear that you can put preload in. They are very, very soft as standard. And I've got to say, I'm not stoked on the front end on this bike. It doesn't have a lot of compression damping, and conversely the rebound is too fast. I think the first thing, like absolutely buying on, if I were to buy this thing, the very first thing I'm doing is putting a fork kit in that. And that you can get it out of Peter Hickman Racing, the legend that is Peter Hickman, TT champion. He's been in development with Triumph where they've been working on bitubo suspension kits for these things. That is without doubt the first thing I would do because there's only so much you can do with rear preload only. And once you really start to wick this thing up, it will hit the bottom of that stroke real fast, and then it becomes a little bit sort of reluctant, I guess you could say, in terms of its cornering. You need to really run that rear brake to try and keep the chassis nice and settled. I would have expected a little bit more out of the suspension department from Triumph, especially considering just how good previous sports bikes from Triumph are in terms of, you know, your Daytonas and things like that. Like, you could never really criticize the suspension, but look, I get it, it's under 10 grand. Also too, I'm not stoked on the brakes. Front brake has a decent amount of power to it, doesn't have a lot of feel. It's got a pretty sort of, again, bargain basement master cylinder. Again, I would like a little bit more out of that, a little bit more feel, especially. You know, power's, I guess, there, but I'm a real stickler for that early feel once you start to pull it in. You do have five-way adjustable brake lever, so look, that's something. But as I say, I think you need to go into the Triumph accessory catalogue and really go through and sort of pick and choose what you want to do to start accessorizing this thing and to bring the performance out of it, because it is there. When we went through town earlier on, we went over a bunch of speed bumps and tons of speed bumps and pretty crappy road surfaces and things like that. So at that point, it's okay, but when you start to wick the thing up, you'll hit the limits of that suspension real quick. Now with the Daytona 660, Peter Hickman Racing, he's the one who's going out and doing all the development for all the go fast bits. This bike's going to be involved in the British Championship this year. So in America, we've got the Twins Cup, and a lot of other countries around the world also have Twins Cup racing. But the British Championship's changing to allow this bike to come in and have a go against things like the R7 and the RS660 and things like that. Now, Peter Hickman Racing has gone out and developed clip-on handlebars, the race ECU. There's going to be different exhausts that you're going to be able to get for it, so you're really going to be able to open these things up. And I think as a little sort of nifty road and track bike, that will actually be a good thing. Once you start throwing a few bits and pieces at it, it'll be really good. They've changed, as I say, they've changed a lot, you know, these kind of bikes. These older style almost bikes. I mean, back in the 80s, that's what these bikes were. Super sport bikes in the 80s were bikes that you could do everything on. They weren't hugely powerful. They were much more ergonomically friendly in terms of your ride position, so you could get out there and do big miles, but you could conversely take the thing to the track and not get too embarrassed by, you know, more powerful motorcycles. Sports bikes nowadays are just getting too quick. You know, I don't think there's anyone out there that would think that 220 horsepower out of a superbike is actually required for the road. So I think this is the style of bike that we're going to start seeing a lot more of. Once you start throwing some bits and pieces at it and you start making it your own, it'll be a really good little bike. But look, for $9,195 or whatever it is, it's a good little bike. The dash isn't fantastic. It's very basic, the dash. You do get gear position indicator and all that stuff, and that's all I sort of stuffed around with. You can switch traction control on and off, and also you got your 3 riding modes. But in its core, it is a really nice bike. Great little motor on it. Absolutely love the thing, and it sounds fantastic. Anytime you get to put a 3-cylinder Triumph on the limiter, it's one of the best sounds in motorcycling. I think the suspension and the handling needs a little bit of help, but once you do, it's going to be a really good bike.